I'm primarily a site artist, so I go to places and then I do a lot of research. I spend a lot of time observing, and then I try to interpret my findings. I'll be in natural environments, some I'll be in architecture. What is interesting for me is that it can never be the same. There are certain formulas that maybe I can try to use, but in fact, there are usually flaws as they go from one place to the next. I mean, there's usually things that I just cannot do just by the very nature of where I am. It's like I'm working with water, so how could I, suggest ideas that apply to the steel structures that I was working with before? And so that really keeps the work alive for me and very challenging. Well, the project that I'm working on for Montalvo involves representing the work of Remy Charlotte, who is an illustrator, a book writer, dancer, choreographer. He's had a distinguished career, many distinguished careers in a lot of different areas. And one of the things that he's done as a choreographer is to develop this form called airmail dances. And I think that this came out of an interest to work with artists in different parts of the world and different parts of the country, and but not having either the means or the time to actually spend a lot of time or to travel to these artists. So anyway, so he developed this idea where he did a series of drawings. There'd be somewhat, not quite like a storyboard, but these small pictures on a page. There may be 20 or 25 of them. They'd be basically very simple line drawings of figures in different shapes. And sometimes he would identify a context like, this is a dancer on a bed, or this is a dance on 3 steps, or dance in a doorway. And he would send this sheet to the dance artist, and they are charged with assembling or organizing the pictures and then creating a context for a performance. So giving it, kind of imbuing these images and the sequences with meaning and narrative. Remy's airmail dances have been interpreted and performed by many dancers here in the United States and all over the world, and there have been many diverse interpretations. There are no two people who either arrange the pictures in the same way or create narratives that are similar. And that's what makes them so exciting. It's like, here's a set of drawings, and each person basically creates a brand new dance. They're never anywhere near the same. Within the context of this project, there's an interdependence between Remy and myself. His work as the illustrator and the core idea, which is a gesture in a drawing, and me as the interpreter of bringing the drawing to life, to giving it context and giving it meaning. And I think that it's a wonderful way to work. That's not, one is not imposing on the other, but one can't really exist without the other. And what happens in that in-between place is really interesting dialogue and conversation. It's enriching both sides with something quite new. Well, I started dancing very young with tap dancing with Miss Kay. And actually, she's an interesting case because I feel like she's responsible for a lot of the harebrained ideas that I pursued as an adult. But Miss Kay was a tap dancer who worked as a vaudevillian, and one of her famous acts, and one that she spoke to us a lot about, was tap dancing while standing on her head. And she would stand on her head, and there would be a floor lower to her feet. And, she could, I guess, looking back, probably accomplish or perform things that, breakdancers, are working with, so spinning and doing it. But anyway, she was so wonderful and magical and interesting that she really inspired me to continue to work. And as I look at the work that I have done in the last 35 years or so, a lot of it is kind of akin to standing on the head while tap dancing. So anyway, that was kind of the roots. And of course, soon after my training with Miss Kay, I started taking ballet, and then I studied at the Ailey School and their extension program, and had some wonderful teachers, Danielle Negrin and Lauren McDougall, who were experimental, worked a lot with experimental forms. And I went to Bard. Eileen Pasloff was at Bard, and Albert Reed, and some very, very interesting artists. And then I went to a conservatory in England. And it was there at the conservatory that that it dawned on me that dance could actually be pulled off of the dance floor, and could come up, move into the air. And it was so logical to me. And I lived next to a circus aerialist, Judith Holmes, who was another very magical, crazy character. And she took me to a lot of circuses that came to town. And one of the acts that I was honored and privileged to see was the Wallendas. And Carl Wallenda was still alive there, and he sat at the top of their very famous routine called the Seven-Man Pyramid. And it was, death-defying and horrifying and wonderful and extraordinary. And it really was, and I've said this many times, it was like I had an epiphany watching Carl Wallenda. And this was in the mid-'70s. And I never turned back. That was it. At the time where I was having my epiphany, I knew that there was a logic there, that's a direction that dance could and would go. I mean, it just makes sense to be able to shape it a little bit more broadly. And now it has really taken hold. That's not to say that it's always used in a way that complements the dance. I mean, I think that there's still a lot of work to do in integrating these two forms. I think that there are still people who are more interested in what the physical feats, or the more interested in how the body works with the certain tools like trapezes or ropes or whatever they are, versus finding the poetic elements that those techniques bring to the work.